Continuing on with this sort of segment that I call artist string theory. We've got two groups of artists that are Bay Area located, and the first group, the Society of Six Painters, painted here in the Bay Area, especially around Oakland, California, in the early part of the 20th century. And a big part of the reason that this group, six painters, painted together was partly that it was a social, thing for them. It was fun, and they got together and just critiqued each other's paintings, but also were inspired by each other's work. And they had been to the World's Fair exposition in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, in around 1915, and they were inspired by what was happening in Europe, especially some of the Cubist types of things. There's some more modernist painting, and here's the Society of Six. This was a show that was at the De Young Museum in San Francisco a while back. It was a great show, put on by Nancy Boas, or curated by Nancy Boas, and she put a book out of that same for that same show. And let's see, sorry, we want to go to our first and oldest member of this group, Selden Guile. And it was at his house that they would get together after painting together and critique each other's paintings and just socialize, and actually sounded like they drank a lot too. So that was part of their whole time together. Louis Segrist, and you can see, it's a very abstract way that, especially this particular painting, that Segrist is working, and how that he was most likely influenced by the modernist work that was coming out of Europe at the time. So these two groups of artists, the reason that this is, again, this sort of string theory, is that this first group painted back in the 20s, and then there's a way that the second group of artists, the outsiders, become connected to that first group. William Clapp, he is probably the most schooled, so to speak, artist in this group. He was studied in Europe, Paris, and I think it was England, and then came back to Oakland and painted with these guys. And Bernard von Eyckman, definitely see the influence of Cubism or modernist work in that piece, and working with pattern and rhythm and sort of fracturing, all about just creating your own design. And you can this is kind of a brief overview. You guys can actually get in and look into any of these particular artists. I can't give you a real detailed history of each one here. It's kind of, this is just a quick review. But another artist, Maurice Logan. I love the pattern of the large, darker shape. If this showed up in our class, I probably would go in and say, let's separate the back, the ridge in the back a little bit more, get that dark shape to show up. But there is a certain way that all of the pieces tie together, like puzzle pieces in a way, and you can see the play of cool and warm in the way that the shadows are rendered in the structure there. Very cool shadows, and then the warm local color and color in the light of that warm brown. And the last of the six here is August Gay. Again, very modernist take. They like to push the paint around, and that's it. So that's Society of Six, early part of the 20th century, 1910 to 1920, and all painting in and around Oakland. And then the second group is called the Outsiders. And I actually was part of this, or still am part of this group, although we haven't been doing anything for quite a while. Um, the oldest member of the group, Pam Glover, was she was in her 90s when she passed away, and she was actually from Britain. She was um, um, you British American, and um, was really she had a big following here in the Bay Area. Lots of people studied with her. She was friends with Lundy Segrist. Lundy Segrist was Louis Segrist's son. So this is the connection really with the Society of Six, is actually Pam Glover's connection to Lundy, and then to Louis Segrist. And so the other painters here, I tell you, I put this presentation, this lecture, together while I was on the road, and I own a lot of these same paintings because we traded over the years. And they're there's a similarity that is, I would say, that binds them together. That wasn't just a friend, because they did. Most of these artists attempted at different times to paint together and do shows together. We would sublet a gallery in Bolinas, California. Most of the other artists are from the East Bay or the Peninsula. William Rushton lives down closer to Silicon Valley on the peninsula here, and his paintings are just always fun. He has a great sense of humor, sort of a very joyful way, not just with the subject matter, but he plays with a lot of paint. And actually, that is another common thread with I would say, this whole group, is that they use a lot of color and they paint by the pound. And William Rushton's paintings are always a lot of fun to check out. Very joyful, sort of narrative, fun paintings. Judy Molyneux. This isn't the best example of her painting. I feel like the one that I have at my house is even better here, but this is what I have available at the moment. So Judy lives in Bolinas, and she paints with a lot of paint, and a lot of pure paint right out of the tube. Very graphic, and very thick impasto application of paint. Ray Jackson. In fact, Ray, I own some of Ray's paint. His daughter and I were friends before I started painting with Ray. But he passed away, unfortunately, a few years back. And when he did, his daughter asked me if I wanted to trade a painting or something for some of his paint, because she had boxes of Danacolor Classic Oil, which you can buy in a caulking tube, and Ray would have a caulking tube, what do you call it? I'm blanking on what you call it. A gun, a caulking gun, right? That's it. A caulking gun that would have each of the colors that he would use along a tabaret in front of his easel. Just amazing. So again, another painter that painted by the pound. This painting, I think, is relatively small, but the larger paintings had a ton of paint on them. Warren Dreyer, a little more, I would say, a little bit more traditional maybe, and he has he's also a musician, but he has a very, I'd say, sort of careful way of rendering, and but also using some I see influences here of Diebenkorn and Thibault, which are other California artists. And not last but not least here, Nikki Bosch Davis, still painting here in Benicia, and wonderful, powerful, I would say, painter. One of her sort of country scenes. And here now, last not but least. I mean, I am actually the last. I don't have a shot of my own paintings here because you guys know what I do. But I have an older, not an older, but a more, I guess, a more typical work of Jerry's and larger piece here, where he's using a lot of paint and sculpting, literally sculpting with the juicy, impasto passages, and and then a newer piece. Jerry's in his 90s at the moment. Actually, he just turned 90. I'm sorry, but he's still painting. He's at home, but he gets out on the couch and he paints these very silly sort of cartoons lately that are still full of color and a lot of paint, but still at it. It's what he loves, is his passion, and he keeps at it. So the Society of Six Painters and the Outsiders, Bay Area painters, and the continuing series of artist string theory. From scene to scene, framing your vision is the theme of this course and is designed for artists at all levels to explore new ways of seeing the world around them, to recognize the potential for subject matter in the everyday, and how to translate that into paintings that share your unique vision. My teaching experience includes 10 years at the San Francisco Academy of Art, Pixar Studios, and the California College of Art, and private workshops for 25 years. The class begins with a review of the principles of painting with an emphasis on composition and design. I do feel that composition is the make or break foundation of any artwork, but that it's also dependent on understanding the basic principles of value and color relationships, the use of contrast and bold shapes, of creating depth with overlap, aerial perspective, and managing edges. Learning how to simplify the complex and tips to manage the medium of oil are also covered and explained in this section in a straightforward way that the first module is a primer for the rest of the course. Gathering, analyzing, and editing reference material to explore painting options is the next part of the class. In Module 2, we'll dive into quick studies with a constant focus on the design potential, while at the same time strengthening skills in brush handling, how to simplify, edit, and critique your studies destined for larger studio paintings. The third module will focus on how to handle figurative elements in a scene. Gesture, proportion, editing, and grouping all need to be considered, but practice is ultimately the key. So this module focuses and encourages lots of that. The final part of the course, which in many ways can be seen as just the beginning, concentrates on how to develop larger studio paintings while implementing the principles put forward in the earlier modules. We'll also explore various palettes as options in the process, address paint quality, and techniques for working into a painting during multiple painting sessions. I do look forward to the opportunity to work with you.